Mexico. A rich history, a tasteful culture. A history that's seen the societies of the Olmecs, the Mayans, the Aztecs. But here, the field hails to one leader at the top.
They're gonna slide to the finish line and Walls wins it!
Wow, what a corner from Michael Walls!
But the doors swing open in new grounds, in territorio inexplorado.
Trevor Haley's gonna go to victory lane, and he's gonna do it from the Music City.
Some will find their amigos, and some their enemigos. Welcome to a series first, south of the border. Bienvenido a Mexico.
Rodriguez. Bienvenido to Mexico for the 8th round of season number 2 of the KBueno Racing Network Truck Series action from the Mexico City Grand Prix, normally hosting to Formula One racing. Tonight it will be the home of the KBueno Racing Truck Series for our first and only road course race of the season, where alongside Nate Polite, I am Francisco Bacallao. Nate will join us in a little bit of a moment, but it'll be just me for this moment in time. And let me tell you guys, Mexico City, a very historic racetrack that has been around on F1 on a variance of different occasions throughout the years before eventually making its return in 2015, and would later spawn the NASCAR Cup Series action to join on the date in 2025, where we saw the Xfinity Series and the NASCAR Cup Series take racing here, and it was fantastic. We saw rain, we saw a lot of drama in the circuit that they ended up running here. That is quite a little bit different than the normal Grand Prix, but I would say put on a really great show, and our Truck Series field here tonight is bound to put on another one of these shows. Let's take a quick look at our schedule for season number 2. We plant ourselves here outside of the United States for the first and only time this season before we go on our 3-race stretch to finish out the rest of our regular season. It is increasingly getting even more important to make those runs towards the playoffs, towards that chase, to make sure you're one of those 10 drivers that can make a run for that championship on the 5 races on the right side of your screen. Just Kentucky, Michigan, and Darlington remain after here tonight. The last proper difficult track before you get to probably Darlington as one of those tougher ovals to really focus on as far as making sure you run your race the right enough way to try and come home with a spot in the top 10. And speaking of the top 10, here's a look at our current points. Right now, Michael Walls just absolutely running away with it all. He's been at the front of the point standings with those now 4 race wins on the season. Juergensmeyer had that win earlier at Kansas. He sits in second, just a mere point or so ahead of Justin Roy, who's been sitting in second. The defending champion has yet to gone back to victory lane. He's been putting on some good performances, but not quite enough to take home the top throne. We'll see if he's able to change things tonight here from the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. But Rivers Jones has also been a very quiet addition to this whole mix. He's been quietly top 5 in points since picking up the win to start season number 2 over at Daytona. He's been able to really kick on the show. You look at Fidel Fabian, among others, really putting on some strong efforts. Trevor Haley's been top 10 this whole while after some bad luck. Maggio's crept up into the top 10 as well. But then you move on to the other side of this cut line where we have a tie for the final spot currently between Robbie Troop and Jamie Wright. Those two are neck to neck for the final position, with the advantage going to Troop. Gabe Gazzola, who's facing his suspension, was hoping to get as a really good advantage here tonight. Will not be present until we head out to Kentucky next week. He's going to be in a must-perform situation to be a part one of those 10 drivers in the final 5 races of the season. Alexander Schumacher, AJ Green, and the rest of those names you see here will eventually start to find themselves in an urgent situation to try and qualify for the chase here in a few races time. That's not the only thing we got going on here. We do also have the mid-season challenge to talk about here. This is round number 1. This is the first race we start handing out cash prizes. Those 4 top finishers from Bristol Motor Speedway last week are the ones that ended up being the 4 that will contend for some money prizes here tonight. The top 4 finishers from this race here tonight will also move on towards Kentucky with a chance to win the prize, unless the winner of the drivers that are a participant in round number 1 are in that top 4, in which case they're already guaranteed a spot at Darlington, making the rest of the top 5 those qualifying drivers. And speaking of the qualifying drivers, in this case, let's look at our drivers, and that consists of Steven Maggio, Justin Rott, Michael Walls, and Robbie Troop, and all of which have been looking really competitive in practice. So we're hoping that it's really tight here when it comes down to race time between these guys to fight for that opportunity to win the $10 here this evening, and eventually maybe trying to give themselves an opportunity as well to go at it next week. If the driver who wins is part of that top 4, it doesn't automatically guarantee him, but if you're, say, one of those other 3 and you happen to finish top 4 in this race, you get to go at it again next week. So it's a little bit of solstice you can take with yourselves, but you definitely want to try and go for it here tonight, where we have no yellow flags to interrupt the racing here this evening. Let's take a bit of a look in the rearview mirror and see what happened exactly at the Bristol Motor Speedway. It was a really long affair from the sunlight that lay down over Thunder Valley, where on the pole it was Michael Walls that was able to lead us to green flag. Robbie Troop was the pole sitter, but had to do a pit stop under green, saved by the bell from going 2 laps down. Was this lap 2 incident. Duncan Fall, Alexander Schumacher going around. Tough battles early between Walls and Wright, who showed up some good pace early on before some trouble fulfilled the 89 later on in that one. Ryan Bogey spinning off of turn 2, getting Alexander Schumacher. That was the theme of Bristol a few weeks ago. It was just non-stop chaos, just drivers running into each other, having some issues, dealing with the tough track conditions. And Steven Maggio was the one that was absolutely fastest on the long runs. He knew the conditions well, he was very well prepped for it, and he was saving his tires better than anybody else. And he was having to fight Michael Walls, who on the short runs and on these restarts was absolutely on it. And it would become a dogfight between those two for the better part of the halfway portion of this race before Steven Maggio would eventually get the best of him. And it wouldn't take long for him to start pulling away. There would be some more trouble later on, even with all the great racing. Mikey Neal would go around here in turn number 3 with contact, but he would end up saving it. And this is, and it ended up a few runs. This was one of the longest runs we had all night, and it would end right here. Contact, Luis Ramirez, Matthew McDonald, just in front of your leaders. There's Steven Maggio going by on the bottom, getting past it, and then that would stack up the field again, creating some even more drama in the closing laps of the race. But we would eventually get a run towards a checkered flag when it was all said and done. Steven Maggio restarted from the race lead, had to hold off any charges from James Bomar, who used strategy to get up there, and in the final laps just struggled to keep that 84 up there. It became a battle for the rest of the positions because Steven Maggio drove out to nearly 7 seconds over the win over the rest of the field in a dominating second half of that one to capture his first win of the season, trying to turn that bad luck around. Definitely taking some good steps in that direction, celebrating in victory lane. We're now joined by Nate Polite here in the booth with me. And Nate, this is our first and only road course race of the season. What do you think is going to be the expectations for these drivers here tonight?
It was also our last international race last season at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada, north of the border. Now we go south of the border to Mexico City. And looking at the practice time charts, it's a whole lot of the same. Jonathan Juergensmeyer won that race. Justin Rott came home P2. Gabe Cazzola was a big player in that race. You mentioned him a little earlier. He suspended after his incident back a couple of races ago at Eldora. He'll be back next week with a chance to try to fight back into the chase. But something really big that maybe not so expected based off of last year's results. Second fastest right now, Kenneth Bueno.
That's a surprise for sure, to say the least. We'll see how the rest of the qualifying order shakes out. We still have about 2.5 minutes remaining with the extended qualifying time drivers receive on the road course to give them time to head out and properly set a lap time. Now, Nate, you mentioned that we were over at Canada. Let's take a quick review look at what happened there last season. Your top 2 have not gone to victory lane yet this season. Could it be 6 for 6? There's Moreno. I think he tried to pit. I think he tried to pit there going into the final corner. Does Juergensmeyer have enough to get around? White flag. As he wraps around the final chicane, he'll win from Montreal.
It was really tough, and it was a really risky move, honestly. But yeah, it's awesome to get it done.
And Jonathan Jurgensmeyer was able to take the victory for his first and only win of season number 1 there, Nate. But he made the most of it, and tonight he definitely looks like he has a pretty decent enough truck to try and go for a second road course win, remain undefeated in Truck Series competition. Do you think he has what it takes, and what do you think is the key difference between here and Montreal last season?
Well, first and foremost, I think Jurg absolutely has what it takes. Ruthless consistency is the name of the game with this guy. Yeah, he's only got 2 wins in his career, but he's constantly running up toward the front of these races. He's beating out guys on the back end of races because he's able to be consistent, not make those mistakes that everyone else seems to make. Big difference between here in Canada is the slow speed sections in Mexico are slow. The stadium section, Foro Sol, that is one of the slowest areas of racetrack we're going to go through all season. These trucks are going to look like they are crawling through that section. They're going to be struggling for grip. It's going to be so difficult to get the power down. It might be fastest to just idle as you weave through that stadium section that you see before you right now. That's going to be the big crucial difference. Also, the 1-2-3 complex and a huge braking zone at the end of the front straightaway. Very different from anything we saw in Montreal.
Going to be very different. And let's take a look at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, opened back in 1959 with 15 corners in our current layout. Hosted Formula One for many years in various different formats on and off throughout the greater portion of the 20th century before eventually making a return in 2015 to its modern stature. We saw the NASCAR Xfinity Series, then NASCAR Nationwide Series race here in 2000. From like 2006 to I believe 2008, Kyle Busch was one of those former winners here from this racetrack. So is Martin Truex Jr. And it's undergone its fair share of changes, but the modern version of this racetrack that iRacing has scanned onto it, it is fantastic. And here's an onboard lap of what it takes to go around this racetrack, Nate. And I know that road course racing may not be your specialty, but kind of talk us through what it's like to go around this racetrack from this perspective.
Well, going down this front straightaway in Mexico, it feels like you've got forever. I could go tell you about everything that happened in spring training in the World Baseball Classic before. Now we finally get down to turn 1, and it's just such a steep braking zone because you're full throttle all the way up, and then it's a tight 90-degree corner right into the next one. It's going to be really easy to slip through your tires in this corner complex. One of those slow ones that I talked about, you want to use all of the curve, and then you get to another pretty long straightaway. And this is where the difference between the NASCAR circuit and the Formula One circuit gets to. Typically, it's another slow corner complex coming up right here. Your turn 4 for the NASCAR circuit is a nice right turn, kind of hairpin-ish. Then you get down to the S's. This is the area where we're probably going to see drivers be able to show their stuff and show the most speed. If you've got the grip, if you've got the pace to handle it through the S's. That's generally speaking where we see these trucks have a whole lot of pace. You get to some slower ones here on the back end, definitely not comparable to S's we often talk about at Watkins Glen when it comes to NASCAR. Then you got another, the shortest of the long straightaways, but still a fairly long straightaway that gets you here, the Foro Sol, the stadium section. And this is where the trucks are going to look like they're absolutely crawling as they roll through here. Just trying to paint the curbs and be as defensive as he possibly can. It's going to be so difficult to not pick up the rear tires. We're going to have a counter on the amount of spins that we see, and especially out of here, because you want to get up to speed as quickly as possible, but you can't spin the tires, you can't lose grip. You want to be able to establish as much throttle before coming down this long front stretch one more time in the next lap.
A long lap is what awaits for those drivers around this racetrack, and as the tires wear, it feels like it becomes just increasingly longer. So we're going to have to see how they deal with that, how they deal with the tire wear to try and make up the best that they can throughout tonight's race. Let's go over through our qualifying grid here from the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. We're on the pole. It is going to be last week's race winner, Steven Maggio, qualified with a 1:34.500. Really strong lap time, just 0.06 of a second ahead of Kenneth Bueno. Your eyes do not deceive you. That is Kenneth Bueno on the front row here from Mexico. He has a really good truck here tonight, looking to try and take home one of his best results here from the KBueno Racing Network Truck Series, and by far his best of the season from a front row starting spot. Third goes to the number 96 of Robbie Troop. He's around that cut line area, had a strong run going over at the Bristol Motor Speedway. He's also one of those drivers competing for the mid-season challenge alongside Steven Maggio, and with him is Nicholas Baumann, who also looks like he has a strong truck here tonight, rolling off from fourth. Fifth goes to Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, who just missed out on that top 4 effort here. Montreal winner from last season alongside defending champion Justin Raw, also completing for some of that money. Colin Forrester here rolling off from 7th. Fidel Fabian is going to be in the 8th place position. And rounding out our top 10, Charlie Byer around that cut line as well. And Brandon Showers, who needs a good solid points run here tonight.
We got Micah Walls lined up alongside Duncan Fall. Points leader Micah Walls probably going to mathematically clinch his spot in the chase tonight. Andrew Davis alongside Jamie Wright right behind them. Then in row 8, we've got Trevor Haley trying to work his way a little further into this chase field. He starts deep. He's alongside Jesse Moody. Row 9, Randy Showers lines up alongside Alexander Schumacher. And then in row 10, it's Alex Urbana and Ryan Bogey. Bogey's going to have an EOL and drive-through to start this race.
He's not going to be the only one to have those kind of penalties tonight. Anthony Foss will be rolling off from the 21st position. Nicholas Bingham will be in the 22nd position. 23rd goes to the 06 of Zachary Hill, and Keelan Belshaw rolls off 24th. Oh, another one of those drivers serving an EOL and drive-through on lap number 1. 25th will go to Timothy Tyler, number 83. Christopher Bishop in the number 14th position, and that'll round out our 26 truck field here from the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. And I'll tell you what, Nate, from time to time here this evening, forgive me, but I will practice my Spanish. I know you grew up in the San Diego areas. How good is your Spanish?
I was good enough to pass my classes in college. That's what I'll leave you with. I don't speak it in any other capacity. I made decent enough conversation with my coworkers at a little Mexican-owned grocery store in Delhi that I worked at when I was a little younger. But it's not particularly great. I definitely don't have a future with ESPN Deportes. That being said, I do know how to pronounce, the word El Cajon, not El Cajun, as a lot of people might think Jimmy Johnson's from.
Yeah, that and a few other surprises that we occasionally find ourselves in. Rolling R's is definitely one of those big ones that a lot of us.
Don't ask me to do that.
Yeah, it seems like it's a lot of trouble for Americans to roll their R's. But it comes naturally to me, and I think you'll be able to hear that here tonight in certain aspects of our race here. But we're starting to wind through these S's, and these S's are going to be very crucial. We got some tire barriers on either side and some track limits that you can extend here through the racetrack, so drivers got to be careful, especially with this one here. As you try to hook it back to the left, it's got to be very easy, because any bit of contact could give you suspension damage and possibly ruin your race. Any last thoughts, Nate?
Yeah, for a lot of these drivers, inexperience at this track is what comes to mind. It's pretty new to iRacing, and especially the trucks, all things considered. However, for a handful of drivers, they do have one truck series start at this racetrack. There was an ASCA race last December. Justin Rock came home P4. Micah Walls came home P3. Duncan Faw came home P5. Those are the 3 drivers that have competed in the trucks on this track in the league race before. You see those green banners? Those are the guys competing for the money tonight. Micah Walls starts in the pretty far back, but he's got the best finish of any of these guys when it comes down to it at Mexico.
We'll have to see. It's not often you get the run down towards turn number 1. The field bunches up in this stadium section as they wind their way through like a serpentine and make their way here. The pace car will make that right-hand turn. That's the only time we'll see it here tonight, Nate. Nothing will prevent us from seeing this field get stacked up again. It's going to come down here to Steven Maggio and Kenneth Bueno exiting the final corner. Bienvenidos a México y la bandera verde se mueve. We're racing here from Mexico City. That was a great jump by Steven Maggio to get clear to turn number 1. We're nearly 3 wide for the second spot. That's Bueno on the outside. Troop will back out of it. Bauman on the very outside. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer makes the dive to the inside to take the second place position. In the meantime, Bueno trying everything he can to hold on to that position. Troop is trying to put him under fire. They're 3 wide for 4th.
Jonathan Jurgensmeyer was the last of the late breakers as everyone flew off toward turn number 1, and he worked his way through that first 1-2-3 corner complex extremely well. Now right to the rear bumper of Steven Maggio as they roll through turn 4. Jurg wants to waste no time. I think he believes he's the fastest on this racetrack over the course of a long run. He wants to check out from this field. He and Maggio doing that already as they hit the S's.
And Luke can see just how difficult it is to go side by side as the back half of the field really struggling. Kenneth has ended up settling up into 4th there as he gets a little bit sideways in that corner. But you're right, Jurgensmeyer wastes no time. He's already crept his way into the back bumper of Steven Maggio. And he wants to keep the pressure on Maggio as the night goes on, making sure that Maggio just can't get into a rhythm, doesn't get comfortable. as you see Rotmeier make a note to the inside of Colin Forster for position.
And Jurgensmeyer was able to force mistakes in this race well, not this race in particular, but the road course race last season in Canada en route to his victory. Something that also helped him, and that was a little bit of fuel mileage. The way this fuel window shapes up, 21 to 23 laps, this is a 42-lap race, so you should be able to split it right down the middle as Maggio leads lap 1.
And on board right now with Kenneth Bueno, who runs in the 4th spot. He is running behind Robbie Troop in the number 96. What an opening lap that was to survive the field. You see the gap he has back to Colin Forster, who's moved up to 5th. Peeks to the inside, but no immediate move for that position. Rott does the same, and we're going to see that all night. Drivers peek to the inside on this straightaway and possibly fake some of these drivers out in hopes that they can make a mistake into this chicane, because those tire barriers there, they can strike you out.
They absolutely can. They're going to catch these guys out if they're trying to cut just a little bit too much of that corner. You know, this is NASCAR. We don't care too much about track limits. We go on board with Justin Rott, or Michael Walls potentially. Yeah, Michael Walls trying to work with me. No, that is Justin Rott. They run the same exact truck every single week, and I can hardly ever tell the difference.
Yeah, it becomes a spotter's worst nightmare eventually. I'm sure of it. As we've made it through mostly clean through lap number 1, Christopher Bishop or Jesse Moody, I believe, had an issue, and they went for a somewhat of a spin on around this portion of the racetrack. And you see Maggio, how close he got to that tire barrier wall on the outside of that's turn 10. You're going to see that a lot of this evening. Drivers will extend the track limits there. You can really go wide. Same deal as Jurgensmeyer there, a little bit further back in 2nd. And then how you get through this slow section, you could really lose a lot of time if you're not careful and end up in one of those tire barriers as well. There's a lot of time to be gained, but a lot of time to be lost in this final section, and at least the top 4 have done a good job of getting through here.
They absolutely have. You mentioned how easy it is to lose time there, and that's when we're really slow and steady wins the race. If you try to go too fast, you're a little happy with the throttle pedal, you're going to spin. If you're a little late on the brakes, you're going to go flying into one of those barriers. Here we see what I talked about pre-races. We were on that onboard lap. Brandon Showers got to the throttle much quicker than Duncan Faw. He's all over his rear bumper as they go down the straightaway. He decided he wasn't going to try to dive to the inside in the middle of the straightaway and use that momentum to his advantage. But as this race goes on, that's going to be a place where passes can be made with little to no contest if you can beat the car in front of you back to the gas.
Looks like Raw had a bit of a moment there on the turn 1, 2, 3 chicane, and now he has to defend from Micah and Bauman at the same time. And you see Bauman, he's one of the 2 drivers here this evening. As contact between Walls and Rott. Walls gets a little bit sideways on the brakes, and he ends up losing that position over to Rott, and Bauman just kind of has to wait through. I was talking about the fact that Bauman here is running the Ram. That is a new truck to iRacing over this past build from last week. We didn't have it the day after Bristol, and him and Kenneth Bueno, they're running the Ram here this evening. It's really nice to see Dodge back in NASCAR, even if it is just in the truck series, Nate. But there you see Kenneth running in 4th right now. He's the other truck running the Ram.
Yeah, absolutely. So nice to see Dodge back in NASCAR in any capacity, and the Ram trucks is probably the best way they could have done it, and it looks super mean. I love the all blacked out front grille, especially if you can get a little bit of highlight on that Ram logo and kind of just make it shine a little bit. Such a beautiful looking race truck. We see Robbie Troop now clear into 3rd. Colin Forster trying to drive away from Justin Rott. That pressure lessened up just a little bit.
And back here you see towards the back end of this top 10, that's where we're seeing more of this field kind of being a little bit more congested than other parts per se, but mostly single file action. And that's what happens eventually on these road courses, is that you get tire wear, difference in pace between drivers, and you end up in a situation where you do get that field spread in it. The gap between 1st and I would say about the 20th position right now is approximately 29 seconds, but if you want to congest it more, from 1st to 15th in Brandon Showers, that's only 14 seconds, which for 4 laps is pretty impressive. Normally in some other tracks and some other types of vehicles, you see that gap become a lot larger. Not the case here today. As you see here, Charlie Beyer, who's around the cut line position, is running in 10th just behind Fidel Fabian, who's done a good job so far this season of having some good finishes. Beyer has a moment there on the brakes and has to kind of compensate for it. He could be susceptible to Duncan Fall here in a moment's time, but it doesn't look like Fall had a good enough run off the corner to mount the attack on the number 52, and that's something we'll see for most of this evening. is those mistakes and how much can the driver capitalize on mistakes, as Steven Maggio in the meantime has already driven out to approximately a 1.5 second lead over Jurgensmeyer, which seems comfortable, but again, just knowing how much of a stressful situation these road courses are and the eventual time you have to make a green flag pit stop, all that will play a factor over the next 38 or so laps in this race, Nate. So even though it's lap 5, it's still a long one.
Yeah, super long race. You got to take care of those tires. Steven Maggio starting to drive away from Jurgensmeyer now. We know Maggio is really, really good at saving up those tires, not overcooking anything too much. But it also can become a situation where it's different on a road course. You turn to right and left. Now we see Kenneth Bueno trying to make a move on Robbie Troop. He was slow and methodical, gets down to the inside lane, and a side-by-side move. Oh, lock the brakes up just a little bit. Troop gets pushed wide into the grass. Bueno's going to look like he gives him the spot back for a second. Certainly, that is the case. A little bit of a nudge after the lockup from Bueno. He'll re-rack and go at it again.
And that's the kind of mistakes you really don't want to make here, Nate, especially with your front tires. They're at a premium to save them, and that lockup is not going to help the right front on his tire. The inside front tire in a corner is the one that takes that load there, and Bueno's immediately on the back bumper. Looks like Troop's struggling with the rears possibly. He's having trouble getting out of some of these corners, and Kenneth is trying to do everything he can, but Troop is making it very difficult of a pass here. Bueno will now look to the inside and not go for it exactly there. And it's going to be tough to pass if you're Kenneth. He likes to leave a lot of space, but that could end up hampering him, especially now that Justin Rott's moved up to 5th and he is putting on some quick lap times.
Yeah, and Justin Rott is moving, and he was able to finish 2nd in that Canada race last year. He was able to come home P4 in the ASCA race here in Mexico. He knows that he's capable of it. Everyone in this series knows that Justin Rott is absolutely capable of putting together just a great race on these road courses. Currently running in 5th position. He knows what he needs to do. He talked to us after Eldora. He was so distraught at the result of that race and being so close to a win and losing to Michael Walls in the last corner. He knows what he needs to do if he wants to go back-to-back as a champion. Step 1 is winning a race and getting those bonus points for the chase. Hasn't done it yet this season. If that title defense is going to go anywhere, it starts in victory lane.
It's going to start in victory lane, and he'll eventually get there. As Michael Walls now peeks to the inside, a little bit of a lockup for the 7. The 15 goes deep, and they'll both go a little bit off the track. The 15 more so, and they both get past Bauman.
Well, there you go, Nicholas Bauman. He's showing us exactly why he was able to come home with a good finish in the Canada race last year. That's exactly what it is. You capitalize on other people's mistakes, and you don't make them yourself. A couple of positions for that 88 truck. Walls is going to hound him, try to force a mistake, but Bauman's been pretty clean on it all season.
Yeah, Bauman's had a relatively good season. And whenever he's been a part of incidents, they haven't really been by his cause. And now with this move up to 6th, he's hoping to try and put together some lap times to try and make some ground. As you see the battle there, Troop looks like he made a mistake, nearly gets into the tire barrier. Bueno's trying to get past, but he is struggling to get that kind of room necessary. And now he has the outside here. They're going to be side by side on the front stretch, and here comes Justin Rott.
This is exactly what I talked about, getting back to the gas sooner. Bueno was wider on the racetrack, should lend him a better opportunity, and he is there, wheel to wheel with Troop. Troop's going to have their preferred lane, and Justin Rott's got a front row seat to potentially 2 more positions falling into his lap. Looks like Bueno's going to get a little clear of Troop as they head off towards turn number 1, and he's all the way clear. That's what I was talking about pre-race. Justin Rott dives down to the inside. Troop going to potentially lose 2 spots right here, able to defend on the inside of Justin Rott. Now Rott gets the preferred lane through 3. Yes, 2 spots lost for Troop, 1 spot up for Bueno, 1 spot up for Rott, and that's exactly what I talked about pre-race, Francisco. Kenneth Bueno got the power down early on the front stretch and was able to make the pass before they even got to the corner. Didn't have to worry about outbreaking Robbie.
Yeah, and eventually Justin was able to work his way past with the diligence, and I think a part of that could be a little bit of a struggle by Troop. You see him kind of hanging in first gear there. That's going to really hurt your ability to carry momentum there. It's going to make the rear tires spin, and if he's already struggling with trying to maintain those rears, that may not be helpful towards his cause. But I will tell you this, over the last handful of laps, Steven Maggio's really starting to stretch this out. He ran 1 second quicker than Jonathan Jurgensmeyer on the last lap. You can see the gap there sits at about 3.5 seconds. And a little bit further back, 4 additional seconds from Jurgensmeyer is Bueno, before you get another 1.5 seconds back to Rott. So really this top 5, the current top 5 that is, maybe the future top 5 with Bauman or Walls, is looking like possibly our top 5 fastest trucks on the racetrack. And on this particular lap, it is another second on the start-finish line between Maggio and Jurgensmeyer. So clearly Maggio, with some really great lap times and ability to save tires under him, not really making many mistakes.
He's been really, really good at not making those mistakes. Just in general, that's kind of the name of his game, right, is don't make mistakes, and he is able to handle this with the best of them. But the other thing that's been his sort of Achilles heel in this series is getting caught out by a poorly timed caution. Well, he's not going to have that today in Mexico, so as long as he's mistake-free, he has this race in hand right now. Again, the question is, how much of his tires is he using up? You know, will anyone in this field be able to make some kind of strategy call? I don't think that we have nearly a long enough race where these drivers can even think about doing a 2-stop, but we are on the far end of that 1-stop window. I just don't think the tire fall-off is going to be big enough for that to matter.
And I agree with you on that part, Nate. We're seeing the fuel window here be anywhere approximately in the range of about 22, maybe 24 laps if someone can stretch it. And that's just past the halfway point in this race. So it should be a relatively easy 1-stop, generally speaking. And I don't think with the long pit road and how much time you lose going down the lane to begin with, I don't think you're making up that much time by making a second pit stop. Though you saw that move Bauman just made behind Robbie Troop. That can give you a slowdown on that particular corner of the racetrack. So, looks like Troop made a mistake here. That could help Bauman gain back some of the time if he did accrue one. But definitely this 96 really struggling to put the power down on some of these corners, and he is dropping through this field now.
And really, really struggling. He lost that spot. Justin Rotfeld in 5th place, now getting into the clutches of the 88 of Nicholas Bauman. That's a big spot for this chase push as well. Bauman comes into this race 19 points up. That is definitely a spot that he wants to get over Robbie Troop, because Troop is right there on the cut line too. Not exactly in a position to bump Bauman, but certainly could be as this season goes on.
Yeah, Bauman is running somewhere in the 7th place position when it comes to these point standings. He's looking to try and build himself a comfortable margin. Michael Walls, on the other hand, who's making the move to 6th here on the outside of this upcoming corner, turn 4. And for Walls, it doesn't really matter. At this point, it's just about guaranteeing what you already know over the past couple of weeks, and that's that Michael Walls will end up being the regular season champion. It's just a matter of when, not if. So he's just trying to have a good time out here. Is one of those 4 drivers capable of winning the cash prize. Right now, the lowest running of those, with Troop running in 4th, in the 4th position, and Steven Maggio leading this race. So as it stands right now, as it looks like Walls may try to make the move on Bauman once again as we enter the stadium section of the race. It looks like right now our current qualifiers would be the 2nd through 4th place position driver, since Maggio would automatically guarantee himself the spot at Darlington as Walls climbs the curbing there. They both slide off the corner, and this is helping Troop buy some time for sure as they nearly make contact. Right now, your current qualifiers would be Jurgensmeyer, Bueno, Raw, and Troop.
And those guys trying to hunt for that money. Troop wanting to go and get that second chance at the money. Of course, all these guys, only one of the 4 contenders today can go and win it. So the rest of those 3 are going to want another chance next week. Probably somewhere they're going to have a bit of a better chance at doing it as well.
There goes down the inside. Michael Walls making the move. He's going to slide it a little bit, but avoids making the contact. Now they really get close to each other, working their way around the tire barriers, and Fidel Fabian sitting there waiting to see what happens between these two. Bauman and Walls have not let each other go, and here comes Fabian trying to see if he can help this 7 truck get clear and possibly move up into 7th in his own right.
This is a dangerous spot for Bauman to be in. This is the exact spot that we saw Robbie Troop get himself into when he lost a couple of spots earlier on in the race. Stuck on the outside there. Looks like he's able to hang tough on the outside of the 62. Now they'll switch back a couple times through the S's. See if they can't go too wide through there, just switching back and forth. But it looks like Bauman's going to be able to hold the position. They got a couple more. Fidel Fabian on the inside here. Bauman on the inside of this next one. And then Fidel Fabian's going to have the chance on the inside, but he goes way wide. Bauman's clear. Now Fabian falls into the clutches of Forrester.
And Charlie Byers hanging in the back of this too on the top 10 position. A little bit further back is Shuey, who started a little bit deeper in the field. He had a good run at Montreal last season. Started deep in the pack on that one as well. Worked his way up through the higher positions. And we're seeing if he's able to do that again. Fabian now over the back bumper of Forrester. As we're now completing 10 laps into this race. The gap out front maintains at about 6.2 seconds between Steven Maggio, Jonathan Jurgensmeyer. Kenneth Bueno, though, is slowly running quicker lap times than Jurgensmeyer. That last lap, it was 9/10 of a second quicker than Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, so the gap between second and third sits at about 2.3 seconds. How about Kenneth Bueno in this Ram truck, proven to be a little bit of a game changer for him?
It has been, and he is able to put these runs together on road courses. You know, we saw him have some decent pace in the last season's race in Canada, but it wasn't quite what we're seeing today. He has been really, really strong. And, you know, hoping that, you know, at this point, mistake-free, when you've got this position established, you're well within the top 3, you're well clear of the rest of the field, you've established yourself as, at the very worst, the 3rd best truck in this race. Make sure you don't make any mistakes. That's the kind of the calling card for each of these drivers in the top 3, and it's so easy to, especially as they head down toward that stadium section. We're going to be talking about it, especially as we get later in this run, because tires so crucial. They're going to be sliding around a whole bunch.
And you see right there, Maggio's already had to work his way past lap traffic. That's Ryan Bogey, one of the first trucks to go a lap down. A few others did as well. Anthony Foss running 5 laps down. Bingham possibly out of this race, 3 down. Belshaw went 1 lap down. Now next up is Christopher Bishop in the number 14 truck. Then you look up at about 12 or so seconds up to Timothy Tyler. So eventually there are going to be some lap vehicles that your leaders and a few other drivers will have to work their way around, as Fabian's in trouble here in the stadium section. I believe there was some contact, and Michael Walls tumbled down the order. He's now in 12th.
Well, we've got an inkling of how this one may have gone, but we'll take a second look at this. We had a whole gaggle of trucks heading toward the stadium section. Oh, rotten walls go way wide, and then we get throw a blanket over these 5. Walls trying to dive back.
Oh, 3 wide is not going to work there, Nate.
Yeah, it's probably not going to work at any point on this track except for the straightaways, but certainly not in Foro Sol, the stadium section. And that's been the one thing that could really inhibit Michael Walls and his chase here toward the end, as we get a second look at this on his rear bumper. Kind of dives it in on him really late on the brakes.
A big lock up there.
Out of the way. And then Walls just trying to get back into it. Not sure if anyone realized they were in a 3-wide situation except for maybe Forrester, and everyone's all over everyone. Adds a huge moment in this race for a championship as well, because we see some of those drivers, and there were some of those cut line drivers. Charlie Beyer grabbed a couple of extra spots. He came into this race just +1 on the cut line. So pretty good stuff for him. Take another look at Kenneth Bueno. He's really closing in. Ryan Bogey gets out of the way of the 2nd and 3rd place runners, but Kenneth is really closing in on Jer.
Yeah, he is flying right now. That last lap, he was 8/10 of a second quicker than Steven Maggio out front. Was the only driver in the 35 seconds, the 1-minute 35s. Maggio now falls off to about a 37.2 at the cross of the start-finish line. Jurgensmeyer 37.5, Bueno 37.6. So Kenneth Bueno is starting to put the hammer down. He's the fastest truck on the racetrack.
There you go, and that's part of this deal of trying to save your tires. Just because it didn't beat your tires up doesn't mean someone behind you didn't save a little bit better than you did. And I think that's what we're seeing right now with Kenneth Bueno. He's really putting the work in. Long runs are a guarantee. No cautions on road courses in this series. So drivers are going to be putting a special emphasis on making sure they have that truck dialed in for the long runs. And we're seeing that now out of the 17.
Oh, and he's going to miss the corner. And he went too aggressively into that corner. He's going to lose time. He was putting in some really good lap times. And he doesn't lose too much time. He was closing up to the back bumper of Jurgensmeyer, but now he's about 2.3 off. And that stems from pushing, probably. Now all he has to do is just try and calm down a little bit, get back into a rhythm. He was putting in some good lap times, so he can definitely get back to it. So it's not over for Kenneth's chances of trying to take at least 2nd place in this race. But can't afford too many mistakes like that. Fortunately for him, at least, he has about 5 seconds back to Robbie Troopers in 4th. Bauman, who through that whole mess has moved his way up into 5th. Justin Rutland to 6th. Charlie Beyer sits in 7th. He was able to benefit off of that. So was Alexander Schumacher in 8th. Trevor Haley 9th. And Alex Urbina has worked his way up into the top 10, but maybe not for long. Here comes Michael Walls.
Yeah, Michael Walls, he's angry. He's like a bull cutting through this field now, and he might be like a bull in a china shop as he works his way through. He slides the rear tires there as we mentioned it, but he's able to get past Trevor Haley, and now he gets to go hunt down Alex Urbana as well. Michael Walls is a very good driver, as is obviously noted. I mentioned at the top of the show, he will be tonight the first driver to mathematically clinch his spot in the chase, and it was only a matter of time, of course, but to do it with 3 races to spare is absolutely absurd. The season that he's had, off rip, and he knows that he doesn't need to be back here. He knows that he should be further up in this field and really hunting down the race leaders. So he's going to be determined and getting the elbows out, trying to cut his way back through everybody.
Well, getting back to the top 10 helps. Has not had a finish below the top 10 this season. His worst was at Daytona with, I believe, a 7th place finish. 7th place as your worst finish, Nate. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, I think I'd take that this deep into a season.
That's impressive stuff that we've seen out of Michael Walls. Had a stretch there where he won 3 races in a row, 4 out of 5. And after a solid run last week at Bristol, acquired what some would call phantom damage, if you will.
Yeah.
And that really killed his truck. It's not something that you would expect to happen, but it did around the halfway point of that race, and that definitely hurt his chances. But you got to think he was struggling on those long runs. It definitely didn't help his cause to spin later on. As right there, Juergensmeyer getting past the lap vehicle of Timothy Tyler, and Kenneth Bueno, just like that, it's already 1 second back at the cross of the start-finish line. Once again, the fastest truck on the racetrack.
Yeah, he got those tires back to temperature, got his brain back to temperature, and now he's right back in the rhythm. He has definitely got the pace to go and catch up to and pass Jonathan Juergensmeyer in this race. Steven Maggio's checked out from everybody. It would take a horrible mistake on Maggio's part for any of these drivers to get caught up to him in this race. The race is in his hands. He's got this, barring any kind of major mistake here. Jonathan Juergensmeyer running second is very, very, very fast as well, and then Kenneth Bueno trying to catch him and make his way up into that second place position. This would be a banner day for the 17 truck of Kenneth Bueno, the namesake of the channel, the namesake of the series. We go on board with him right now, and this is just really tremendous stuff we've seen out of him today. This would definitely be the best race that he's put together in this series.
I believe Bueno has 1 career top 5 finish, if I'm wrong, and you might be able to check that stat for me, Nate. He finished 4th at Iowa last season. I believe that was his career best finish. Even with this 3rd place right now, that would be a career best run for him. If he's able to move up to 2nd, and I'm telling you, he's running comparable lap times to Steven Maggio. He lost a lot of time at the start of this race, especially when trying to get by Robbie Troop. If he gets into clean air ahead of Juergensmeyer, could he possibly run back down Steven Maggio?
It's going to be really tough with the lead that Maggio's built up. Almost 9 seconds over Bueno, 8 seconds over Juergensmeyer. That's a lot of time to ask anybody to take out of anybody's lead, but especially to ask anybody to take out of Steven Maggio's lead. So second place might be the ceiling, but again, that's barring any kind of mistake from Maggio. It could be as simple as a lazy spin, or he loses some time, maybe bullies his tires a little too much. He could end up stuffing it into a tire barrier, trying to cut a little too much time out of the corners. It could be a speeding penalty on pit road. Any sort of issue that Steven Maggio might run into is kind of what Juergensmeyer and Bueno have to be hoping for.
That is probably what they're going to be hoping for. And the pit entry here is no joke, Nate. And I don't think that many drivers have probably practiced getting onto pit road. It's off the final corner. When we go back around this lap, I'll try to point it out here, but it's off the final corner. You have to kind of stay to driver's right, and there's a line that you have to stay below in order to have a safe entry. If not, you get penalized for an unsafe pit entry. The timing, the speed line is a lot further down. So I'm not sure if any drivers have practiced that kind of pit entry style, but it could play a role here in this race without a doubt, because that fuel window's almost open here in a few laps where you can pit and get to the scheduled end of this race, which is, like we mentioned, the fuel window being about 22, maybe 23 laps on the far side of it all. So around lap 19 could be the earliest you see anybody take a dive at it down pit road. And speaking of dive, what a dive by Michael Walls to get up to 9th past Shuey.
Absolutely, what a dive. And that's kind of what he does. We see again Timothy Tyler getting out of the way. Love that these lap trucks are pulling off to the side, making it easy for these drivers racing for position. That's something that we tend to see a lot. That's It's another one of our Rams out in the field, that Mopar 83 of Timothy Tyler. Getting
Yeah.
his laps in.
Another one of those Rams. I stand corrected. I guess there is 3 out there rather than 2. But look at this. Jurgensmeyer may have made a mistake here on the last lap or so. Kenneth Bueno's right on his back bumper. We have a battle for second on our hands as Steven Maggio went off track.
There we go. That's one of those mistakes I was talking about. It's not too bad. We saw Kenneth Bueno do the same thing and rebound pretty quickly. But we'll take a second look at this, see if it's any worse than we thought it might have been. On board with the 51 getting into the brakes.
Oh, man.
Way missed it.
Yeah. Luckily for him, he kept going straight and minimized time on the grass. And luckily for him, kind of mitigated his losses. But lost a lot of time in the process. You don't see the drivers battling for second, but that just, it gives them enough of a life, Nate. You know, it doesn't take much. He lost about 3 seconds. Come the checkered flag, we'll see if those 3 seconds end up mattering if any other mistakes don't occur. But there's one thing that's a fact. This 17 is still moving, and he's looking to try and get past Jurgensmeyer here, approaching lap 18.
Yeah, I think he's going to try to do exactly what he did when he got by Robbie Troop, which is just get the power down earlier, which if you've saved your tires well enough, is easy enough to do. And I think that's what the difference was for the 17 when he got by the 96. But you see that lap, Jurgensmeyer several truck lengths further out in front. And with that mistake from Steven Maggio as well, we talked about that's the only thing that could derail his race. It's the big mistakes that would derail his race. He did an absolutely incredible job of minimizing the damage of that mistake. Went straight on, didn't go into the grass, didn't spin the truck out, didn't panic, locked the brakes up, said, okay, this is fine. I have 9 seconds of lead that I can work with. Let me just get this truck centered. If I lose 3 seconds, that's better than losing 10 seconds because I spin the truck out and have to get it refired. So a good job to minimize the damage off that mistake by Steven Maggio. He's a veteran driver in this series and on iRacing in general. He's no stranger to these kind of situations.
Entering his 3rd year on the sim, and the word veteran already being tossed around, but he drives like one, Nate, with his ability to be fast but also save tires, as was able to pick that up relatively quickly in what is considered short time on the sim. So to see him out here dominating this race is not a surprise, and Bueno continues to close the gap. He is basically almost pushing Jurgensmeyer as they approach the stadium section.
He's a lot faster through the slow sections of the racetrack on the front end, through that 1, 2, 3 section, turn 4, and then all the way through the S's. He just closes on Jurgensmeyer, but this is where Jurgensmeyer was able to extend. The last time by, he's going to do it again. This is where the difference has to be made. Kenneth Bueno's got to get the gas earlier than the 00, but he stays a little lower on the track. Jurgensmeyer is able to make that exit straight. Look at how much time he gains as they blast off down the front stretch.
Yeah, Jurgensmeyer just doing enough to be able to hold him off, and that's reflecting on the lap times. Bueno, who was able to run in the 36s, essentially the same as Steven Maggio, kind of being controlled by Jurgensmeyer in some extent. Because we don't normally see Kenneth be super aggressive on the racetrack. He does not want to obviously get into somebody else and cause somebody else's races to go awry. So he's definitely going to make sure he gives Jurgensmeyer the space. But that brings up the other side of it. How aggressive does he become to try and take second place knowing that his truck is faster?
It can definitely wear on a driver, but something that Kenneth has always been pretty good at. Number one, as the owner of the league, you got to have a little bit of a feather on your right foot and, you know, a little bit of a feather on the steering wheel and not be too aggressive in that manner. But number two, he knows where he sits in points compared to a lot of these guys, right? 29th in points, Jurgensmeyer fighting for a championship. So too is Steven Maggio if Bueno were to get there. So he understands that there's no reason for him to go throwing door panels, especially for second place. Now, if it's for the win, I can't guarantee anything, but he's certainly aware of where he sits among the rest of the drivers, and especially in his position as league owner, you got to be a little careful. As Jonathan Jurgensmeyer ate that curb going into the stadium section here. This might be the best chance Kenneth Bueno's had. He's right to the rear bumper of Jurgensmeyer. Better through the stadium section this time. Can he get the power down to the front stretch?
Waited a little bit longer there to turn as they're trying to put the power down the front straightaway. And the thing about Mexico, one of the bigger points about Mexico is we're at 8,000 feet of altitude here, Nate. That means there's less air to deal with, less of a hole being punched by the truck in front of you, less drag, but less of a slipstream effect. So Kenneth not really able to close the gap too much here with the slipstream effect. And he'll have to sit behind Jurgensmeyer for the time being. Definitely looks faster. And you have to think, you talked about this isn't the battle for the win, but if he continues to sit behind Jurgensmeyer, is that erasing a possible chance at the race win?
Again, I think it's going to just take a lot of mistakes or a really, really big mistake out of Steven Maggio. But that gap is kind of settled out at about 6 seconds since the last mistake by Maggio. He's not expanded that gap really whatsoever since then. So these two drivers know that they're, one mistake from Maggio away from really being in the chance to race for this win. And Kenneth Bueno knows that. He starts to lose a little bit through the S's that time, but he had a really good stadium section. He found something there. I don't know if it was just because Jurgensmeyer ate the curb going in or because Bueno did something different, but he's going to have to try to replicate that. You've got to get the power down going down the front stretch. That's what this is proving right now. You see how much faster he is. Not so aggressive to throw it in there, but he certainly showed Jurgensmeyer how late on the brakes he could be as they head to Foro Sol.
He has to be just a little bit better in the right spots. And at this point, I got to beg the question, Nate, does he box to undercut?
It's certainly something that's in the cards here. We come to take end lap 20, and that's the halfway point of the race now that these drivers are coming to. So the pit window is firmly open, and the undercut is in play for this lap and probably the next one. I think you could have come in this last time by as well to try for the undercut. Don't really know how big of a deal it's going to be, but I'm a little bit surprised, I guess I would say, to see some of these drivers not really go for it, especially when you don't have a whole lot to lose. You're probably not going to lose that much to the cars in front of, or the trucks behind you if you undercut. You have everything to gain, but these guys are getting kind of onto the same straightaway. You can see them in the same shot as this 51 truck now of Steven Maggio as he rolls through turn number 4. I think a little bit of blood starting to come out of that 51 truck, showing that he's human. Again, we saw that mistake. This gap still sitting even to those drivers behind him. I think that's another thing for Maggio. He's got to come in and be the first to pit road. If I'm in his situation, I'm willing to lose a couple of seconds because I get overcut, if you will. I don't think that's going to be the strategy. If the overcut's in play, I think it's a lot weaker than a potential undercut would be. If that's a question in the mind of Steven Maggio, he knows that he's going to have to cover an undercut. I think that's a no-brainer that he's got to be in this time by.
He probably will be. You got to be the first on pit road. It's almost 2 seconds to fall off from what Maggio's last lap was compared to his fastest lap, and he's going to try to pit, and I don't know, Nate, he crossed that line. Could iRacing penalize him for that?
It's going to be close to 00 and 17. Both stay out. Okay, they clearly think that the overcut's going to be the way to go. But we will see, and for the first time in this race, we have a brand new race leader.
Jonathan Jurgensmeyer leads the race. We'll monitor Steven Maggio. You saw the left front of his truck cross the white line around the area of the curb, and he'll overshoot his pit stall. Not quite. And the jacks are going up right now. We'll have to see if when the jacks drop on the right side, if he stays stuck on pit road. If he is stuck, that is a telltale sign. Robbie Troop also made a trip down the pit lane. And Maggio ends up going away, so no penalty for the 51. Close call.
Absolutely a close call, and that's one of those things I mentioned could have ended his race. I think Nicholas Baumann also coming down pit road right there could shake up this middle part of the track, but take another look at this. He was already super low right here, but gets just a little bit wide after hitting the curb, spins the tires, sawing the wheel back down the racetrack, just trying to get in time. It's so close and able to get up over that curbing, so he's good to go by iRacing standards.
Yeah, it was as close as you can be for Steven Maggio. Made it absolutely work. Now we'll see how the rest of these drivers navigate this. And Maggio's pit, and he's exited in the 5th place position, approximately 28 seconds behind your leaders. And we'll see now. Most likely these guys have got to be in this time, not as there are leading time now to Maggio on the fresher tires. There goes Jurgensmeyer diving into the lane. Kenneth will go in behind. Bueno a lot more conservative. There's the timing line, and look at the ground he lost to Jonathan Jurgensmeyer on the pit lane. Michael Walls remains out on the racetrack right now. He'll exit the final corner and make his way down pit lane here from the 3rd place position. Alexander Schumacher running 4th will also turn off and head down to the pit lane. And there's Steven Maggio, as Kenneth Bueno did overshoot his pit stall.
That's unfortunate for Kenneth Bueno. overshooting his stall just ever so slightly. Steven Maggio back to the race lead, and he's going to be able to set sail and take off. Gap should be back up to about 8-9 seconds after this round of pit stops. Kenneth Bueno comes out behind Jonathan Juergensmeyer, still in pretty close touch with him. I think that gap is probably going to extend just a little bit. We see Robbie Troop, Nicholas Baumann much closer to the rear of that 17 truck now after that undercut. That's just how powerful it is. And those tires are heated up as well, by the way. So they're not worrying about cold tires as much as the 00 and 17 are. This is a possible chance for Robbie Troop to pounce, try to steal a couple of positions. He's a little far away, but a lot easier to make a mistake as you heat these tires back up.
And that's also to mention the penalty that the 17 paid by overshooting his stall. He had to back up, definitely lost at least a second or two in doing so. Could have made the difference between getting in front of Juergensmeyer. Instead remains in third, but now on the flip side of it, once the tires do heat up, that's about 1 or 2 laps of a difference between Troop and Bueno and Juergensmeyer that could help him out on the back end of this run. We saw the 96 kind of fall off after about 5. That could possibly bring in Baumann, who also really closed in the gap on Troop through the pit cycle, into possible 4th. Then you have to go nearly 10 seconds back to 6th place, Justin Roth, before you go back to Michael Walls, who just exited the pit lane. He's ahead of Charlie Beyer, Alexander Schumacher, and Trevor Haley. This is the battle for the 10th place position with Brandon Showers.
Everybody come through and made their pit stops now. Keelan Belsha maybe playing a little bit of defense for Kenneth Bueno right there as they exit the stadium section. Juergensmeyer just a little bit ahead now. Kenneth Bueno, all things considered, mistakes aside for Bueno, he's right in that same position as he was. He's going to have another 20-lap stint trying to chase down this 00. He's going to have a good chance as those tires wear. Plenty of opportunities to go and size up that Ford in front of him.
But can he make the pass? That's the question, Nate. He wasn't able to do it in the first stint. Can he play enough patience here? And maybe not for too long if Troop, at least in the early portion of the run, we know how he's been quick on the short stunt. We'll see if he's able to mount some kind of challenge for your front 2. But Bueno just mounting pressure on Juergensmeyer, who hasn't really faltered to his credit. And as well, 13 seconds behind race leader Steven Maggio. That's the power of those fresh tires. He opened the gap from what was 6 seconds to 13 seconds as well, when you consider that those two probably as well battled each other a little bit more and had their fair share of issues on pit road, having to back up through their stalls.
Yeah, we expected 2-3 seconds difference based off the fall off of these tires. 7 seconds is absolutely outrageous. It shows the just absurd pace of that 51 truck, especially on fresh tires. And I think he's going to be able to build a gap over the 00 and the 17. And I think it's not even a tire situation between Juergensmeyer and Kenneth Bueno. I think that 17 truck is just faster than the 00. I think that's been proven here on this run. He just needs to get a pass, and really turn 1 and that front stretch have been the only passing zones on this racetrack today when you're not in a battle, when you're trying to just run someone down. As long as Juergensmeyer is able to get the power down early, coming out of turn 15, and not make mistakes in those slower sections of the racetrack, he's going to be able to keep that 17 in his rearview mirror.
And it could take a mistake from Juergensmeyer. That might be what it requires for Bueno to get past. He's clearly not been showing that he's willing to make an aggressive move for the spot. He's being aggressive on the racetrack as far as making lap time, but he's got a good run here. Probably one of his better runs. You see Juergensmeyer maybe goes a little bit defensive. Bueno tries to load up the outside.
Threw a little dummy, and now he's going to be able to use that outside. And he's like the further outside lane there in turn 4 has Bueno all race long. Show Juergensmeyer, okay, I'm done just following in your tire tracks. Now I'm going to start showing you that I have not only the speed, but the guts to make a move on you. Tried it there, didn't work, but he's going to be able to bottle it up, and he's just right glued to his tailgate as they come through the S's with a little more pace, actually, closing that gap ever so slightly, almost kissing the barrier on the outside of the S's. He's going to try the outside again as they head to Foro Sol.
Does Juergensmeyer push him wide over the curb? Yes, he does, but now he has the inside for this position here into the hairpin, and Bueno now ahead of Juergensmeyer. What a move!
That pass was 15 laps in the making. Finally gets to the outside of Juergensmeyer, makes the pass going through the stadium section, and crucial there, Juergensmeyer pushed him wide, but Kenneth Bueno was able to stay on the asphalt. Juergensmeyer ate the curb again, on the inside going into the stadium section in turn 10, and now Kenneth Bueno is going to have a chance to drive away. You've been asking all race, Fran, if I think that 17 has the pace to go chase down the 51. I don't think any truck on planet Earth does, but if Kenneth does have it, we're going to find out right now. He's got 13.5 seconds.
This racetrack is 2.4 miles in length. It takes over a minute and a half to lap around, yet him and Steven Maggio, with the pass I add you on Juergensmeyer, were 4 thousandths of a second apart, Nate. That's just how much faster Bueno and Maggio have been compared to most of the field. And the gap is probably a bit too much now as Troop goes defensive on Bauman, who makes a strong move around the outside to take 4th place. What a run it's been for this 88 machine of Nicholas Bauman's. Going to need that really for the points. But that gap may be too much, Nate, out front. I think if it was the gap it was before the pit stops at about 5 or 6 seconds, it definitely could have been a lot better of a shot at it. He's going to definitely need a mistake out of Steven Maggio.
We've seen Maggio bleed. That mistake out there in turn 4 that he made earlier on, he was able to corral it back up. But, you know, as these lap times start to even, we haven't seen Kenneth Bueno free of that 00 yet. He's already put some space between him and Jonathan Juergensmeyer. So we've not really gotten to see that true pace until now. I think this is going to be the lap where we really see if it's at all possible. Looks like Kenneth's taken out about a 10th, maybe 2, since making that pass. So it's a little bit, but it's certainly not enough with 16 to go.
Yeah, that last lap, Maggio stepped it up and ran a 34.99. Bueno ran a 34.7, so these two clearly some of the fastest on the racetrack. And Juergensmeyer's been hasn't really been slow either. He ran a 35.1, but he definitely has hidden some of the pace that this 17 has had for much of this race. And now in this clean air, we'll see if Bueno can do whatever he can. And I think, Nate, no matter what happens to this 17 in the final 16 laps, he'll be happy with this performance here today, because this is the kind of performance that you don't really see out of Kenneth, but it's the ones I've always told him he is capable of delivering, and now he's proving true.
We talked to him pre-race, and you know, he didn't seem too confident in what he was going to be able to do. He certainly has proven that he has the capabilities. Right here is, you know, again, he's going to have to chip away at about a second a lap pace if he wants to have a chance to, if he wants to give himself a couple chances to pass Steven Maggio. That being said, he's now inside of that 13-second margin. Of course, it fluctuates as drivers go through the corners because it's the active pace on the racetrack, and there's times that are determined by it. But generally speaking, he was able to chop off a couple tenths. The last lap looks like he might be in a position to chop off another couple of tenths this lap. But at this rate, he's probably going to end up taking about half of Steven Maggio's lead away from him. Not nearly as much as he's going to need.
We'll see what it ends up being. At the cross of the start-finish line that lap, it was 9/10 of a second quicker for Kenneth Bueno. Or actually, it was 9/10 the previous lap. This last lap was along the lines of about a quarter of a second. So he's definitely still putting on some good lap times, but we saw that the longer into the run we went, Kenneth was able to maintain some of this performance. We'll see if that continues to be the case over the final 15. You're riding on board right now with Brandon Showers, who runs in 11th. That's Trevor Haley in the 12 truck just in front of him. This is the battle for the top 10 position, one of our closest battles on the racetrack right now.
You see how much curve they're using. Brandon Showers, one of these guys that's trying to fight his way into the chase. Trevor Haley, 56 points clear of the cut line. But we've seen mistakes from any driver take away a whole lot of points and drop them tumbling down the order. Perhaps a missed race here or there has done the same thing. So Trevor Haley wants all the spots he can get. Brandon Showers trying to fight his way into the chase as well. Back to Kenneth Bueno, who's looking at the rear bumper of the lap truck of Andrew Davis. Kind of building a steady gap over Jonathan Juergensmeyer in that second position, but Steven Maggio has the steadiest gap of them all, just dominating this race. But again, we take a look at as it flips over on the ticker at the top of your screen. Kenneth Bueno inside of 12 seconds now. He might have a chance if he can keep up this pace, because he's starting to get into that just under a second, about a second a lap. It would be probably at this rate, if it were to stay exactly as it is and he were to repeat that laps gain every single lap, he would have a chance probably to get at the rear bumper of Steven Maggio on the final lap.
That lap, it was about half a second, the difference between Maggio and Bueno to the advantage of the 17. Maggio, he's been running fast laps. It seems as though he might have a moment or two occasionally throughout the lap, which is where he loses some of his time. No major mistakes really outside of that one mistake we saw a few laps ago. Otherwise, he's kept it on the track for the most part. And as long as Kenneth doesn't have any major mistakes, and I say that and look at all the lap traffic in front of this 17, that's Randy Showers. He'll let him go relatively easily. Same deal with Jurgensmeyer, who'll get by that number 22 machine. But that's 35 of Ryan Bogey just in front of Kenneth Bueno. He's 2 laps down in this race. That's Jesse Moody as well, who's a lap down in this race. All in front of this 17 machine. They're not exactly going to race the driver not in the lead, as look how much Bueno slides through the final turn of the S's. They're not exactly going to fight Kenneth. It's not the race leader. There's no cautions that are going to come out in this race, so there's nothing to gain by being the first vehicle a lap down or something. So they're not exactly going to race anybody difficult, not necessarily, but it still can affect you as far as when you catch them. And I think right here, Jurgensmeyer remaining within a second ever since the pass was made is proof of that with this traffic.
Yeah, that traffic has put Kenneth now back to about 12 seconds behind Steven Maggio. And that's been the big difference in their pace. I'm sure we'll take a look at those lap times that last time by. Kenneth Bueno a little bit slower going through the traffic. These guys have done a pretty good job getting out of the way, and sometimes even just going off of the racing surface to let drivers get by. But that doesn't mean that, you know, you catch up to those lap trucks in a not so great spot on the racetrack, say the center of a corner. There's not a whole lot they can do till they get the power down on exit. Otherwise, they probably just end up spinning out right in front of you, and it ends up worse for wear. So it's a matter of finding the right places on the racetrack to catch these guys. Steven Maggio has found the pace in that truck again, lead back up to 13 seconds, and he's just driving away with 13 to go.
And you got to remember, we did not see Steven Maggio at Montreal last season. Did not own the track. I don't believe he still owns the racetrack, but he owns Mexico, and he's grabbed the pole position by 0.06 of a second over Kenneth Bueno, and that could have been the difference. Right here as he approaches the lap truck of Keelan Belsha, who's 2 laps down this race, about to go a 3rd down. And there's a lot of other good stories in this top 10 as well, Nate. Bauman in 4th spot, having a really solid road course run once again. Robbie Troop inside the top 5. You got Alexander Schumacher in this top 10 as well. Charlie Beyer looking to come away with another top 10 result. So there's some good stories up through down this top 10 that, if it remains this way over the next 12 laps, could really help certain drivers in their playoff scenarios. Maggio crossed the line with a 35.3. This time it's a 35.3 as well for Kenneth. 0.03 of a second to the advantage of Bueno that time. Maggio clearly able to put up a little bit of a more of a contest this time around as far as the lap times are concerned. But at this point, even if he is faster, Nate, I don't think it's going to matter. Not with 12 to go. He's going to have to hope selfishly that something were to happen to this 51 machine. And I don't think that there's much more that this 51 machine can have go wrong for him. But after that win at Bristol, it probably got the monkey off his back.
That's certainly what it felt like. You know, we talked about...
Oh, look at this slide.
Talking about the commentator's curse, he completely slid it through the back end of the S's right there. You know, we talked so much about the bad luck that Steven Maggio has had in this series, and in particular this season. A lot of races that have been the one that got away. Well, it's been the 6 or 7 that have gotten away from Steven Maggio in this series, and in season 2 in particular. You know, we think back to the strategy debacle at Charlotte. We think back to the accident that he was involved in at Richmond. Those are just 2 of those races where he had bad things happen to him in races that he very well shoulda, coulda, woulda won. Got the monkey off his back last week in a dominant race at Bristol, and now he's doing it again here at Mexico, and 2 tracks that couldn't be any more different than one another. This is the guy I think has the opportunity to go and beat Michael Walls for this championship. Maggio was not a title contender a season ago, didn't run enough races to be far enough up in the points to really contend for a championship. But when he was on the track, he was running well, did the same thing this year, now actually showing up every week, contending for this championship, wants to be here, wants to get it done. And the call is coming from inside the house from Michael Walls, because in back-to-back weeks, Steven Maggio is establishing himself as a championship threat Walls' teammate.
That's going to be one to watch. He had to battle teammate last season, did Walls, with Justin Rott. And it could happen again this time around. A battle of GOAT Inc. drivers for the title. Jurgensmeyer has not let Bueno go. He's maintained within about 9/10 of a second ever since he got past the 17. So Jurgensmeyer's also done better on this portion of the run, finding some speed relative to the 17. Both of them continuing to gain a little bit on Maggio. The gap approaching 10 laps to go sits at about 11 seconds. So it's kind of like we mentioned, Nate. As long as Maggio doesn't majorly make a mistake, he has this time that he can bleed off. He doesn't have to push like hell over the next 10 laps to build the gap. He has the gap. He can just kind of play around with it. It's never about by how much you can win by, as long as you cross the line first.
Yeah, you got that gap. Might as well use it.
And a battle for 6 could be brewing up here between these two that already have made contact in this race. Justin Rott and Michael Walls. They were running in this position earlier, but they lost several spots after contact on that portion of the racetrack sent Walls tumbling down the running order, and now Walls has crept his way back up to Rott.
Yeah, and Walls has got to be steaming mad after that one. And I think certainly from our view up here in the booth, that was on Justin Rott. Got way too hot on the brakes, ran the 7-up off the racetrack. Then Walls trying to get back into the action, forced him 3 wide, stuck his nose where it didn't belong, hand caught in the cookie jar, whatever analogy you want to use. Ended up in a spin and has had to fight back from the 12th position all the way up now right to his teammate and championship rival from a season ago, Justin Rott. And he is all over the rear bumper of that one truck, giving him the business as they exit turn 3.
A fearful pull of Michael Walls Justin Rott is facing. We'll see if he goes defensive into the loop here. Walls will go a little bit deep, but not quite enough. A little bit of contact with the wall, a little bit of a bumper there by Walls as they approach the S's now. As Rott slides his way, you see Walls have to lift a little bit to avoid wrecking.
Walls is not giving him any leeway.
No, he's not. He is mounting this pressure on Rott, but all in hopes of getting a good run off this corner right here to see if he can mount some kind of a charge. There he is. He has some forward momentum. Rott will protect the inside.
This Walls all came undone between them last time.
And Walls is going to go for it for a moment. Rott leaves him enough space. But nothing doing yet for Michael Walls. He's going to dive in last second. And he makes the contact. Rott will go off the racetrack. We'll see if he keeps the spot. No, he won't. Walls will take it away.
That's perfectly executed payback from Michael Walls. So we saw the contact between those two. That Walls ended up worse for wear there. He says, Justin, you're my buddy. You're my teammate. I am not going to cut you the slack this time. I'm getting to you, and I'm going to get my elbows out, be a little physical, a little boot scooting boogie south of the border.
And they can call it whatever they want. They could say the bump and run, or I actually don't know how you would say that phrase, and my Spanish for being born in the States is actually quite good. But I'm sure it's something. And knowing how Latinos are and their slang, they would definitely say something probably I can't repeat over the radio waves. So I'll say that much. But with approaching 8 laps to go here, Steven Maggio putting on a clinic. And I'll take this opportunity here, Nate, to kind of talk about what these Season 2 updates brought over to iRacing. We saw the St. Petersburg Grand Prix layout get added to iRacing, a track that I've had some fun driving here over the past week or so on iRacing with these trucks, with the IndyCar as well. It was a long time coming for iRacing. They eventually plan to incorporate Bahrain and Circuit Paul Ricard. Among other racetracks, what do you think, Nate, of the ones on iRacing is your favorite? And I also will second that and ask you, of the ones not yet added on iRacing, what do you think is one you would like to see?
Well, as far as ones that I'd like to see, I think you just mentioned it. Bahrain is always one of my favorites to drive on the F1 games on the console. It's a super fun track. I think it races really well. It's got a good balance between off-camber corners and high-speed sections, low-speed sections. As far as road courses that are in the game, I think my favorite's got to be where we were last season at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada. I think that it's a great almost mix of 2 different racetracks, right? The front stretch is very kind of grid-like, especially with that Wall of Champions chicane, and the back portion of the racetrack just flows so well and gets your tires lifted up off the ground just a little bit, you know, a little slip slide. You love when a track gets like that and the car, truck, or whatever it is you're driving gets just a little bit loose. It's not comfortable as a driver, but it makes for a great show watching from the booth or the grandstands, and we saw that in that battle between Juergensmeyer and Ethan Fonseca Moreno last season. But I tell you what, Mexico is definitely earning some love for me because it's put on some really good battles here tonight.
I loved the Mexico Grand Prix, and I was hoping it was one of those tracks added to iRacing. Eventually did get added, I believe in September of last year, so to see it on the sim was fantastic. I liked the show that the NASCAR Cup Series and O'Reilly Auto Parts Series races were able to put on there in 2025. I know you're happy that the Coronado Air Base gets to run a race later this year for all 3 series over in June, and I'm sure it's going to put on a good one. It's an interesting layout, to say the least. In a few months' time, they'll be out there.
I'm excited. I already got my ticket. I'll be there, booty and seat.
A home race for you, Nate. That'll be in the San Diego area. As far as the tracks on iRacing, I'd be very biased to say right now that St. Petersburg is one of those tracks I'm just having an absolute blast driving as a street circuit. And I'm not huge on street circuits as far as my ability, but I don't know what it is about St. Pete. I just love the rhythm about it with the truck and the IndyCar, but especially these trucks. It really just drives well around there, despite not having its own setup yet, which it should. But as far as tracks not on iRacing, yeah, you bring up a good point there with Bahrain. I would like to see that track on there. They do host some WEC races as well. We can see some sports car racing with the different variants, the Bahrain Outer, the Grand Prix, the endurance layout. So it would be fun to see those different styles clash throughout the on iRacing. But gosh, you got me in a real pickle now. There's a lot of tracks that have been added to iRacing that I've actually wanted for a while, and they've been incorporated into the sim. So I got to really think. Kenneth Bueno has a little bit of a lockup into that little hairpin. Could invite Jonathan Juergensmeyer to close up the gap for second place once again. And these two have been closing the gap to Stephen Maggio, albeit very slowly. It's under 10 seconds, almost 9 seconds. And you have to think, Nate, if they didn't make their fair share of mistakes on pit road or go that additional lap, how differently could this race have looked?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it. It was a 6 or so second gap. A little bit of wall there for Stephen Maggio as he came out of turn number 3. It was a 6 or so second gap as they came down, and they've taken 5 seconds out since coming back off of pit road, and it was 13 seconds. So the pace is definitely there, and we very well could have seen a battle for the win. That's why I thought these guys had to try to undercut Stephen Maggio. Instead, they go for the 1-lap overcut. Oh, a lockup there from Kenneth Bueno. Here comes Jurg right to the inside, snatches the position away.
And Bueno tries to concede, almost makes contact with Juergensmeyer, and you have to think just how many laps Kenneth spent behind Juergensmeyer, and in one corner allows that 0-0 to get by. If he thought it was hard to get past Juergensmeyer earlier in the race, it could be even harder to do so now, but he's right on his bumper.
All over his bumper, and Juergensmeyer is second in points, wants to try to take spots from Michael Walls, but Kenneth Bueno wasting no time diving up the inside into the stadium section.
And much like the move that Kenneth made, Juergensmeyer goes off track, but maintains the momentum and maintains the position. And this battling is going to help that gap not decrease for Stephen Maggio. So we'll see what this battle becomes over the next 5 laps. Bueno struggling with his rears a little bit more, it seems. But they're still running 35s over the course of the run as the sun has set it a little bit, so the track has gotten significantly cooler compared to what we saw earlier in this race. So that last lap, 37 flat to a 35.9 for Juergensmeyer. That mistake by Bueno in that one corner was enough, and there he is, closing up right up to the back bumper.
He's getting willing to be a little bit more physical than he was earlier in this race. I think that answers the question that we had earlier. He's definitely willing to show a little bit of the bumper, especially with the near 7 seconds they have back to Nicholas Baumann. I think Kenneth Bueno realizes that he can be a little bit aggressive, and there is the aggression. Oh my goodness!
I think he just caught Juergensmeyer off guard. I wasn't expecting that move, and he makes it stick.
What a corner by Kenneth Bueno. Oh my goodness, and now he's going to drive away from the 0-0. He just threw it in there. I didn't think there was enough space to the inside. Jurg was just taking the standard line. Have a look at this from the wide shot, why don't you?
Just out of nowhere, Kenneth was hanging back, and shades of Daniel Ricciardo last on the brakes, locking it up, but makes the corner, and he makes the inside enough just to not let Jurgensmeyer make the cutback. What a move.
That was unreal.
And he gets back into second place, now approaching 4 laps to go. The gap's still about 9 seconds to Steven Maggio, who, barring any mistake, any big mistake out of this 51 machine, is staring down the eyes of back-to-back wins, looking at some other battles on the racetrack. Still Brandon Showers and Trevor Haley, but this continues to be the closest battle on the racetrack. Jurgensmeyer now a quarter of a second off the 17. Now it's his turn.
So he won. Yeah, trading haymakers, Fran, and Kenneth's got to respect it and go wide a little in turn 1, and that's going to give Jurg a pretty good chance rolling the inside here, but that outside exit for Kenneth Bueno is so strong coming out of turn number 3. They're going to be side by side again heading to 4.
And now Jurgensmeyer has the inside. Bueno left a lot of space there. Enough for Jurgensmeyer. Jurgensmeyer will brake a little bit later. Bueno opens up the steering. And a little bit calmer.
Maybe?
Not really an option there, but
Oh.
Jurgensmeyer in a lot calmer of a fashion gets back by the 17 as they are putting on a show. Now losing time to the race leader, but it does not really matter at this stage of the race. This is the outright battle for second place right now. As Bueno gets another run.
He was all over him through the S's. Kind of gave up the back end of, or the front end of turn 4 to charge it up. And here he goes down the inside, heading to the stadium section once more. Locked it up again.
Locked it up again. It's going to cost him a little bit of time. But these two are clearly not getting away from one another. Now coming to 3 laps to go. Is there anything that 17 may have left as he slides it through the penultimate corner? You see the gap there grow to about 4 truck lengths between your second and third place drivers. And Jurgensmeyer now trying to break the draft.
We mentioned it's not super strong here, but it's still at least a little bit faster for the truck behind. So wise of Jurgensmeyer to try to break that draft, close off any chance, at least in turn 1, that Kenneth Bueno can get to him. What a battle these two have put on for us. Really a great show fighting for that second position.
And a clean battle at that, Nate. They haven't really made contact with one another, not in any odd manner. There's been a little bit of rubbing, like the pass that Kenneth made, but that was just a spectacular move. I think even Jurgensmeyer may look at that and go, wow, what a move. They've been basically clinging on to one another since the early laps of this race, and they're putting on a show here for the back half of the podium. And don't look now, but if they keep squabbling like this, Nicholas Bauman's now less than 4 seconds behind. There's plenty of time left for him to make up for this gap, as Bueno's now second off Jurgensmeyer. Bauman maybe tries to make a run here in the final laps for a podium spot.
Yeah, Bauman was sitting there watching those guys battle in front of him. I'm sure he's a little bit upset that Jurgensmeyer's gotten so clear of Bueno. Now I think there's a possibility that Bueno might have used up his stuff right here, as maybe trying to cool those tires off, get right back into battling. But Nicholas Bauman nonetheless took about 2-3 seconds out of those trucks in front of him as they fought for position. We're going to have a little stack up here further back in the field. The 12 of Trevor Haley, the 62 of Fidel Fabian. Fabian, part of that incident with Michael Walls early on. He fell as far back as 15th, and he's worked his way up to 11th, trying to get back into the top 10 and continue his stellar season.
There's the move to the inside. That's for 10th place, and he clears Haley as we enter the S's section. That's the lap truck of Keelan Belsha ahead. Duncan Fall moves up to 12th ahead of Brandon Showers in the process. So Fidel Fabian, who started pretty decently in this race, fell back with the contact as he was an innocent bystander in. Now finds himself with an opportunity to finish in the top 10. Alexander Schumacher, who's 8th, will find himself under fire here from Charlie Beyer for the final 2 laps of this race. And that gap between second and third has now grown. It is over 1.5 seconds between Jurgensmeyer and Bueno. I think that 17 may have used whatever he had over this final run, pushing it a little bit more, being more aggressive, and Jurgensmeyer maybe saved enough when he got past that now he's able to drive away. We'll see if he makes any mistakes here over the course of these last handful of laps. But out front, no major mistakes. He went wide once or twice, but otherwise it's been a clean night for Steven Maggio as he'll come off the penultimate corner and onto the final curve to take the white flag. 1 lap to go from Mexico, Nate.
It's just been a perfect drive for Steven Maggio. Now he needs 15 corners on worn-out tires. Jonathan Juergensmeyer can only hope for a catastrophic mistake out of the 51, and likewise, Kenneth Bueno can only hope for a big mistake out of the 00 if he wants to get by, and Bauman can only hope for a big mistake out of the 17 if he wants to get by. That's what the watch is for this final lap, but what a job by Steven Maggio, and I feel almost bad for him because he spent so much time out in front of this race dominating that it was too boring to talk about him, but he has been proving himself not only to be a chase contender, working his way back into the top 10 of the standings after having some bad luck early in the season. He's proving himself to be a true championship contender. 2 wins back-to-back, both in absolutely dominant fashion. Got the monkey off his back last week at Bristol, backing it up today at Mexico City. These tracks couldn't be more different if they tried to be. The high bank short track in Bristol, this long, high altitude, winding road course in the middle of Mexico. And it's just been a beautiful job by Steven Maggio, and he's going to get $10 for his efforts as well.
He's leading this race, has led almost every single lap from the pole position. After winning last week, he'll take win number 2 this time around and win those $10 as part of the Juergs Midseason Challenge round number 1. He'll move on to Darlington with a chance to win a $30 prize. Sliding through the final set of quarters into victory lane goes Steven Maggio, el ganador de la Ciudad de México, as he wins from Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez.
It's that signature slide across the line, and now we sit and wait for 10 seconds to pass by, and we'll see Jonathan Juergensmeyer now cross the stripe. Kenneth Bueno in his rearview mirror. Nicholas Bauman comes home with a great top 4 as well. And behind them, the rest of the field filters out. Michael Walls nearly got to Robbie Troop. This is that battle between Beyer and Schumacher.
And that was for a top 5 spot. Michael Walls, not his worst finish this season. He'll remain in the 6th spot. Beyer unable to really make a move there on Schumacher over these final set of quarters, as he'll actually spin.
Oh!
He'll spin. He'll keep it going in the right direction. Has a big gap, though, back to Fidel Fabian of about 12 seconds. So no big loss there for Charlie Beyer, who will safely come across the line in the 9th place position. And Fidel Fabian, after making the pass, Duncan Fall got by Trevor Haley for 11th. And Fabian will move his way to complete our top 10. But this is the guy over the last 2 weeks, Nate, who's just been dominant, both on the short track and on the road course.
Just truly dominant. Now we go to Darlington next week, a track that I have no doubt in my mind he's going to be able to go run well at and compete for another win. Again, I think he's really shaping up that he might have a chance to go fight Michael Walls for this championship.
And he's going to celebrate in the stadium section in front of all the virtual fans as he'll enter Paul's Setup Shop victory lane. What a drive by Steven Maggio. It's been an incredible 2 weeks, complete opposite of what the first 6 weeks have been for the driver of the 51. And now sits here with multiple career wins, getting number 3 here tonight, tying him with Justin Rott for 2nd all time.
Really great performance back-to-back for Maggio. Just can't say enough about the attrition and the season that he's had to come through, get the monkey off his back a week ago, and back to victory lane here in Mexico.
He'll bring it onto the front stretch now as he continues to celebrate and almost park it on the start-finish line. What a job by this 51 machine to get it done. What a race here from Mexico City. We'll now look at our unofficial race results here from the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, where Steven Maggio captures win number 2 of the season in back-to-back fashion from Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, who was able to take back second place there in the final stages with an intense battle all race long with Kenneth Bueno, who captures a career-best third-place finish in what was arguably and undisputably his best career performance to date. Nicholas Baumann takes home a 4th place effort. Robbie Troop will be in the 5th place spot. Those 2nd through 5th place positions, those 4 drivers will be battling next week at Kentucky for a chance at the $10 prize. So make sure you book those names and start making your bets over for the Kentucky Speedway for the Jurg Midseason Challenge at that racetrack. Michael Walls will finish in 6th place. Justin Rott will round out in 7th place. Alexander Schumacher will finish in 8th place. He'll need those points. So will Charlie Beyer, who was right on the cut line 1 point in entering the race. And Fidel Fabian will round out the top 10 here, Nate.
Off to 11th, Duncan Faw was able to catch that late over Trevor Haley, who comes home P12. Last truck on the lead lap, Brandon Showers. Jamie Wright finishes 1 lap down. He's trying to hunt toward a chase berth and a 14th place finish, pretty far behind those guys that he's battling straight up. Jesse Moody finishes 15th. Andrew Davis in 16th ahead of Ryan Bogey, Timothy Tyler, Keelan Belsha, and Randy Showers to round out the top 20.
21st will go to Alex Urbina. Christopher Bishop will finish in the 22nd spot. Colin Forrester, who looked like he had a decent truck early, got involved in that mayhem in the stadium section, will finish 23rd. 24th goes to Nicholas Bingham. Anthony Foss in 25th, and never made a lap was the 26th place position for Zachary Hill in the number 06. Well, let's move on over and get ready to talk with our race winner here from Mexico. And now welcoming into Victory Lane, La Senda de Victoria, Steven. Congratulations here on the win. What a race that was to go out there and just put on a gap on everybody. Talk us through what it was like driving this truck around this racetrack.
It was pretty interesting because you had the high-speed corners and you had the slow-speed corners. I was really worried about turn 1 because, I mean, we've seen what happened in real life, and, you know, you never know what could happen in turn 1 at any road course, really, and I was happy I got through it clean and in the lead. And at that point, I was just, just trying to, like, get into a rhythm, and I feel like I did pretty good with that. And, you know, I was making mistakes here and there. I wasn't, like, fully locked in, but it was enough to have a big gap on Jurg and Kenneth. And I don't know what happened to them in the pits, but I came out of the pits like way farther ahead than I was expecting. And at that point, I could kind of just make sure I just needed to not make a major mistake, and I was going to be all right.
Yeah, on the broadcast, it appeared that they missed their stalls and had a little bit of a slower entry into the pit lane. Speaking of the pit lane, we saw it was really close for you clipping that line going into the pit lane. I know that iRacing has a bit of a, not a cone, if you will, but it kind of that same kind of procedure there on the pit entry. Were you concerned at all that you maybe almost clipped it there?
I wasn't until I did it, and then, like, right as I did it, a thought popped in my head, and I was like, wait, did someone say something on lap 2 about getting an unsafe pit entry? And then I got worried for a second, but it didn't give it to me, thankfully. So yeah, that would have been like the worst way to lose it, because I've lost these road course races in a million different ways, and that one probably would have been the worst. But yeah, I wish I thought of that beforehand, but thankfully I didn't get a penalty, so I was happy about that.
And now you're sitting here with back-to-back wins, Steven, with Bristol and Mexico. We move over to the Kentucky Speedway next time out. You won't be a part of the midseason challenge there. You've locked in your spot to Darlington to battle for the $30 prize. What do you think is going to continue to be the goal for this 51 team? You're sitting nicely in the chase positions to qualify. You've already won the $10 prize here tonight. What do you think is going to be the goal for this 51 team over the next 3 weeks?
Just have clean races. I know that when I have a clean race, I have a lot of speed and can contend for wins. And finally got the monkey off my back last week, and then finally got the road course monkey off my back this week, because this was my first ever road course win. So I just gonna try to ride the momentum a little bit, and like I said, just have clean races. I know that when I just don't get involved in stuff, that I'm really fast. I mean, I could have won 3 in a row with Nashville, and then I had that one restart. So I just I guess hope I don't get caught up in other people's stuff, and obviously don't cause my own stuff. But yeah, that's the goal.
Have you thought about where you're going to buy with the $10 yet? I know it's a little bit tough, but I'm sure something has popped up in your mind.
I might try to support one of these paint scheme creators. I know we got a lot of good paint scheme creators, and I do have a couple of schemes in mind. I always feel bad because I'm one of those people that's really picky, so I don't want to like pay for something and then have them have to edit it a couple times, or like I buy one from one person and then a different person didn't get that commission. So we'll see, but I'm probably gonna try to support someone with it. And yeah, it'll be good.
Sounds like a good move, Steven. Congratulations on the win here. Before we let you go, anybody you want to give a shout out to that helps makes this happen for you and the whole 51 truck team?
Yeah, first of all, shout out the people in my chat. I had Chris and Matt watching, and someone else that I don't know their name, but 88 fan. Um, and then shout out you guys for the broadcast and running the league. Thank you guys for hosting. Um, Thank you to my team. I had Justin, Duncan, and Jamie in my call tonight, and then obviously I'm teammates with Jurg and Micah as well. And that's about it.
We appreciate the time you take with us, Steven. Congratulations on the race win here tonight. We hope to see you out next time out from Kentucky.
Thank you guys. Have a good one. God bless.
And Steven Maggio, winner for the second week in a row, this time from the road course at Mexico. Nate, what a job it was for him to take away the race win. And now you're going to be caught up with our second place finisher here from tonight's race. You're caught up with Jonathan Jurgensmeyer.
Hey, oh. Looks like we had him for a second and then we lost him.
Yeah, it looks like I think we both tried to move him at the same time. We'll see if we can get him back in here, as I think he may have been dragged. Yeah, there he is now. Okay, we'll try this again. I'll step aside from my keyboard so nothing goes wrong this time. But you're caught up with our second place finisher, Jonathan Jurgensmeyer.
All right, Jerry, we got you this time?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. First and foremost, congrats on a second place finish. I can't talk to you right now without mentioning the battle that you and Kenneth Bueno had coming into pit road, and then the entire second stint coming off of pit road. I mean, it must have been 30 laps of you guys throwing haymakers back and forth at one another. What was that like from your perspective?
Oh, it was fun. I mean, to race against Kenneth finally, I haven't really gotten to race him in the series a lot, but I mean, this is a good first battle, really. I mean, he was just the first run. I kind of killed my tires going at Steven, and then I kind of realized too late that I'm not Steven on Steven's level, and kind of burned my tires up. And Kenneth was absolutely hauling on that second run. Then when I pit, I turned into my pit stall, and I was too far right. I had to back up, and that probably cost me 2 seconds. And Kenneth was right on my bumper, and he was really fast in the short run. I decided just chill behind him that run, and it ended up paying off. I think I had better tires than him at the end, but yeah, it was really fun. I mean, he was throwing dive bombs. I threw one in turn one. I mean, it was just an awesome battle.
And there was one in turn 4 where he caught us in the booth by surprise, and I'm sure he caught a lot of the viewers by surprise. Were you shocked when he just sent it into turn 4? I want to say it was around 5 laps to go.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And it's crazy because I was expecting it less in the car because there was a cloud over the track. I don't know how much you guys could notice on the broadcast, but it was really dark in certain parts of the track. And right there, I guess the darkness with his dark blue scheme kind of blended into the darkness, and I didn't know he was dive bombing me until I was turning in. Then I had to like, oh my god, and hit the brakes harder and turn out of it. But yeah, it was definitely it was a good move. But yeah.
And then you came into the night second in points. You end up gaining on Micah Walls. I know he's a long way up the road, but as far as we talked to Justin a few weeks ago. He said that he feels like he needs to win races. Are you of the same opinion on that front, or do you think that consistent runs throughout the chase and throughout the end of this regular season can get you up close to fighting with Micah for a title?
I'm not really worried about points racing a lot right now. I mean, obviously I'm going for wins, and the points are kind of just extra for me right now until we get to the chase. Like it's cool to be high in points, but I want to win races, not for the points. I just want to win races to win races. And I mean, everyone's different. I know Justin he's big on points. He wants to win a championship, and he's gonna do everything to put himself in the best position to win a championship. And Mike is similar, but I'm kind of just like man, I could win this week. Let's win this week because I want to win this week and not because of points. So it's just different perspectives. Mine's a little different than those guys, but I don't really have a shot at him. I think I have a good shot at second, which I think nets me more playoff points. I think that's how the system is. But yeah, we'll just once the chase comes, I'll start uh, really points racing. But for now, I'm just sort of just racing to race.
And then before we let you go, Jurg, is there anybody that you wanted to thank or shout out for this race tonight?
Um, Shout out to all the guys. Shout out to my boy Steven for winning the $10 and advancing to the finale and the Jerk Midseason Challenge. I made it for next week. That's cool. So did Kenneth, Nicholas, and Robbie. So that'll be fun. But shout out to Kenneth. Shout out to Broadcast Boy for a great battle. It was awesome to see. And that's pretty much all.
Thank you very much, Jurgen. Congrats again on a nice P2 finish here tonight.
Yep, thank you.
That's Jonathan Jurgensmeyer's second place effort here tonight from Mexico City. What a battle it was with Kenneth there, Nate. It was a fantastic job by Jurg to end up taking that place back in the closing stages. But I think the most heartful interview is the one left to come. And now we move on to third place, Kenneth Bueno. And Kenneth, no at-risk, no specialty this time, outright a third place effort on the road course from Mexico. ¿Cómo lo hiciste?
I don't know. No sé. I mean, it was a really good race. I mean, I learned a lot from practicing over the last few days, and I know you gave me some tips on how to just be a little bit faster, technique of downshifting. I think that's one of the things that, for me, had been such a big struggle in these cars, and even the O'Reilly car too, is that the wheel hop hits you really quickly when you're not using throttle on the downshifting, so it made a big difference when I was practicing, and it really translated well into the race. I mean, I didn't know how it was going to go. I mean, I fell back to fourth in the first run. I thought that's kind of where I was going to settle, and maybe I would have dropped off after a few more, but I got past Robbie, and then I was catching up to Jurg, and man, it was fun. I mean, I felt in the rhythm, felt really smooth, and even after the pit stop, you know, me and Jurg going back at it, several shots that I had to him that somehow stuck and somehow didn't. But yeah, it was great, and with Jurgensmeyer at the end, that was a ton of fun. Probably the most fun I've had racing and iRacing in a little while, honestly.
Yeah, we saw that battle and we were sitting back just absolutely like reaching with the back of our hands, almost standing up in our chairs at the move you pulled off there in turn number 4. That caught us by surprise. I wasn't expecting a move. I saw you go in deep and with the lockup, and all of a sudden you make the corner and you held onto the spot, and we're looking at each other like, wow, what a move. What went into making that?
Well, so to be fair, I just had the braking marker on the bridge, but I'm gonna be real with y'all. I didn't think I was gonna make the corner. I thought I was gonna overshoot. I thought either I was gonna hit Jurg and kind of hit check up the corner, or I thought I was just gonna just bomb the corner, go straight up into the grass, and then he'll go by on the crossover. But I don't know what happened. I don't know how the truck managed to just stay planted in the middle of the corner, but it locked up. I thought I was gone, and then it just stayed. And then I thought the crossover was there, but we were just at a kind of weird point in the corner where he couldn't get to the inside, and I had enough speed to match. So, yeah, it wasn't exactly a planned move, but, you know, there were several times where I felt I had really good runs on Jurg and just decided to go for it. And that was the time that I didn't think it was going to work, but it somehow did.
It worked out really well for you there in the end, but ultimately you did lose the spot. But Kenneth, you had a really good performance here tonight all around. At certain points in the race, you were running fast enough laps to not only run with Steven Maggio, but we're actually lapping a few tenths of a second quicker for multiple laps there. Was there anything you thought about if you had moved up to second, either before the pit stop or maybe the overshoot of the pit stall? Do you think you could have maybe gotten into second place and maybe had a little bit of a calmer second half?
Yeah, potentially. You know, I didn't want to risk too much on the strategy front. I'm still really novice when it comes to strategy. Like, I mean, you've heard it from me. Like, I've tried being the commander of strategy, and then I put us a lap or two down on most speedways. So, you know, I didn't want to go too outlandish with it. I just trusted the numbers that were on my screen. I followed Jurgen, and, you know, I knew it was going to be a battle from there because Steven was just so fast. I mean, his truck was on rails. He pulled out to an intense lead really on, and that's what you need at road courses like these if you don't have any mistakes, any crucial ones. So Steven did a great job on that. And then I think at that point, it just settled in that I knew it was going to be fighting for second, at least the top three. And to me, that felt good. I mean, running up front is just a privilege in its own right. And understanding and watching drivers like Jurg, like Maggio, and like so many people in this league, just how good they are on a weekly basis, I think it's just exciting just to be around them, just to race it with them, learn from them, and see how I can match up with them in a certain sense. And so it was all about fun at that point, and I'm just glad I came away with third.
And this result puts you in a position to go racing at Kentucky for the chance at the $10 prize with the midseason challenge. What do you think is going to be the goal out there at Kentucky?
Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news and do a womp womp, but I'm not going to be racing next week. I have already committed to a race control, and I feel like that's something that I really want to do to help this league out just a little bit, help the feedback from the drivers that they've given us over the season. So I think it's fair, given my lack of racing this year, to hand it over to the next person. So I think if there's anyone that's more deserving to have that spot, it would honestly be Michael Walls. I mean, he's won 4 races this season. He's been the points leader, the driver to beat. So I think he, more than anyone, also deserves a shot to fight for the $10 at the end of Kentucky. So I won't be racing, but I'll be eager to watch whoever ends up winning that.
We're certainly hoping to see you out on the racetrack again, especially knowing that being the first of those 4 to come across the line definitely would land some money in your pockets. But I know that that's something you want to do. But we do hope to see you out on the racetrack again in the future. Before we let you go, Kenneth, anybody you want to give a shout out to that helps makes this happen for you and the whole 17 team?
Oh, man, I'm going to be here for like 3 hours, bro. I mean, I'm going to say, first of all, shout out to KBueno Racing. I mean, you and the entire group there, just a wonderful group of people. And I think that they've not only helped me kind of become a better sim racer, but, they're great people to talk to on a weekly basis. You guys at KBRN for the broadcast every week, for you and Nate for doing such a great job, and for Nate being now a new addition to KBRN, but not so new anymore. It's been a couple months, so it's great to have him on the team. For Charlie and Keelan at 30 South Racing, I love being in a voice chat with them. Randy was with us as well. Schumacher was with us there as well. So that was fun to kind of hang out with them and, talk things throughout the race. And just a shout out to Jurg. That was a great battle. I mean, he raced me clean. He raced me incredibly tough, but that was probably the most fun I've ever had, battling side by side with someone in a little while. And a big shout out to Steven. I mean, going back to back, winning at Bristol, then winning it again here tonight at Mexico City. I think that's huge for him. And I mean, he was so fast. So a big shout out to him, and a shout out to everyone for running the league. I'm glad that we got 26 tonight on a road course. That turns a lot of people off sometimes, but I'm really happy that the people continue to have faith in this league, and we can keep it going.
Especially one like Mexico. First, one of the newer tracks on iRacing, and we had a really good turnout. So I'm happy that you and everybody else was able to join us here this evening. Kenneth, congratulations. Felicidades on your podium finish here tonight from Mexico. Disfrútalo. Have a good weekend.
Muchas gracias, Francisco. Thank you.
That's Kenneth Bueno. Podium finish here tonight from the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez there, Nate. And what a race. We really had another great road course race. It wasn't the down to the wire battle for the win as it was in Montreal with the strategy of fuel saving, but nonetheless, another fantastic battle that was delivered on the road course once again.
Yeah, fantastic battles all throughout the field. I mean, Steven Maggio stunk up the show up front, as can happen with a guy of Steven's caliber, of course, driving away from everybody else. If not for those mistakes on pit road, could have been a little bit closer. We definitely documented that, but a phenomenal win and a show of dominance from Maggio and all throughout the rest of the field. I mean, Kenneth versus Jurg was just scratching the surface of what this race had to offer. There was fights all the way through. We saw Fidel Fabian climb back from 15th to the top 10. Michael Walls charged from 12th all the way up to 6th place and, prevent himself from getting his worst finish of the season, right? Getting a little physical with his teammate and good buddy Justin Rott. We saw just so much tremendous racing all across the field tonight. Really, really great job by all of these drivers.
And it was a great opportunity to showcase this racetrack, Nate. Like we talked about, it was relatively new to iRacing. We saw NASCAR come here last year, but it wasn't really seen that much on the sim racing side of things as far as NASCAR vehicles within our community, at least not in a major way. You talked about a few drivers that raced an event here a few months ago. but this is the first proper time that it gets the proper attention, I guess you could say, here on the surface with this competition. And I think you could say it's fair to say that it has delivered. It really delivered some great racing all up and down the running order, and it was a fun enough challenge for everybody.
Yeah, and you could tell the challenge that all these drivers faced, and I think you could tell from our interviews. Of course, we probably got the three happiest people in the field, but I think it was a hit with a lot of these drivers. Kenneth mentioned it in his interview. 26 drivers showing up for a road course. These are races that often can see numbers fewer than 20 show up to races. So I think it's a great show of confidence in this league and in this racetrack. That many people showed up today.
Especially, like I mentioned, a newer racetrack. Some of the more classic NASCAR road courses like Watkins Glen and Sonoma, a lot of people may own and show up to because they're very familiar. This track, relatively new, and you get this many people. Shout out everybody for taking your time on this Monday night and being able to join us here on Mexico City on the racetrack and in the stream, as we'll now look forward in our schedule to the next event. We'll be sitting at Kentucky Speedway, the still the modern scan of Kentucky, not the older scan of the racetrack. We'll have 3 races remaining before we move on towards our chase, and it is really starting to dwindle down towards the cut line. As you look towards the point standings here, Nate, just mere points separate Charlie Beyer, who despite his great run, now sits at 10th. He is the last driver currently in on the point standings, ahead of Jamie Wright, who's currently in 11th. That's a 7-point gap there. Robbie Troop sits in 9th place spot, so he moves off from the 10th place position, and he sits 14 ahead of Wright. Schumacher sits at approximately 15 points behind Charlie Beyer, so no big gain there. You saw them running nose to tail there towards the end of that race, and Duncan Fall is the first, I would say, big gap you see at about 37 behind Beyer. So really from Rivers Jones, who wasn't here tonight, who falls down to 8th, sitting at what is 34 points above the cut line, really from 8th to 13th, or even 14th, that's looking like the main gap that is going to be contending with over these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, certainly. We've seen big point fluctuations, right? Drivers don't show up, perhaps get into an early incident. One that I think is going to keep being looked at is Gabe Cazola. He sits 45 points out right now. After serving his 2-race suspension, he's back. He's got 3 races to make up those points and get himself back into the chase positions. It's doable, but he's going to have to put on 3 of his best KBRN Truck Series performances ever, all coming off the back of that 2-race suspension after Eldora.
Not just that, he's going to have to also serve the probation and anything that may come his way if he gets involved into some more incidents. So yes, he gets to return, but he also has to be mindful of his truck and assure himself that he doesn't get into further trouble and further complicate his situation. So he's going to be able to return on the racetrack, start accumulating points, and for his sake, at least hope that he can keep it clean enough when we show up to the regular season finale over at Darlington and be in just by enough. It doesn't take much. As long as you're in by 1, it could make the difference between being in the chase and not being in the chase. Now, last thoughts here, Nate, before we move on to Kentucky. We have our official 4. We saw Kenneth not showing up next week. It is going to be Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, Nicholas Bauman, Robbie Troop, Michael Walls. Those 4 will be battling for the $10 prize next week. What do you think is going to be the outlook as far as that particular battle and what we could expect to see over at the 1.5 mile in Kentucky?
Well, definitely Michael Walls has to be the odds-on favorite. He's probably the odds-on favorite for the race as well because he's been so good on intermediates and every other racetrack we go to. But Robbie Troop has shown some speed on those kind of racetracks. So has Jonathan Jurgensmeyer. Nicholas Bauman is a wild card. You know, he's definitely got the pace, but doesn't always have the luck. And sometimes the speed in the truck just isn't quite there. But I'll be looking to see those guys battle. It's very possible that battle for the $10 could be decided in that battle for the win.
And don't count out Jonathan Jurgensmeyer as well. The winner from Kansas could very well steal it as well. So you want to make sure you watch out for last season's 3rd place championship finisher and that one. If you want to watch some more action on the KBueno Racing Network throughout this week, be sure to join us on Wednesday night for the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series playoff opener from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. The playoffs underway. You want to make sure to watch for all the drama and all the action waiting for us over in Sin City. Be sure to join us on Thursday for the SAC Cup Series action where we continue to road race from Adelaide. We're going to the Adelaide Street Circuit in Australia from down under for the SAC Cup Series for their 2nd road course race of the season, where Nate Polite, Mikey Neal, and Kenneth Bueno will be on the call for that one over on Thursday. And of course, on this upcoming Sunday, we're going to also Kentucky Speedway, a late change by the Drop in the Hammer Cup Series admins after a tire test at North Wilkesboro. They have changed the circuit over to Kentucky Speedway. Be sure to join Kenneth there on Sunday night at about 8 p.m. Eastern, where you'll be able to watch Drop in the Hammer Cup Series action from the Kentucky Speedway before we come back next week from Kentucky as well for the Truck Series action next Monday night to continue Jurg's midseason challenge. From everybody up in the KBueno Racing Network that helps makes this happen, from the Truck Series admin team, from Charlie Byer, Keelan Belsha, Kenneth Bueno, Eli Comerford, JJ Hill, Randy Eggers, from Nate Polite alongside me in the booth, I am saying so long. Thank you for joining us this evening from Autodromo Hermanos Rodríguez. Yo quiero agradecerles a todos por juntarnos con nosotros esta noche, por tomarse su tiempo y mirar esta gran carrera que tuvimos esta noche. Les felicito a todos, que tengan buena noche y que la pasen muy bien. Yo soy Francisco Bacallao diciendo que tengan buenas noches y nos veremos next week. See you all then.